All right, so you moved to the house at Bixby when you were 5,
Uh-huh.
and you lived there till you went to school.
Yeah.
So, do you have any memories before you went to school when you were at that house?
Just playing around,
Uh huh.
Horse fell in the barn.
Horse
The
fell
roof
in
of the
the
barn. Well, it didn't have a roof. It had just planks and hay,
Uh huh.
so the barn too was
Nina.
was sort of like a soddy.
Oh. Uh huh.
It came out of the. So he just ran up straight and
Oh.
fell. Was hanging in there. I don't know how they got him out.
So, let's see. So at Bixby, you were were you in? So were you in town, or close to town?
Well, I guess you could call it a town. It was a town at one time,
Mhm.
and it ended up with just a bunch of vacant buildings and post office and a general store
Uh huh.
together.
Oh. Uh huh.
And then it had a gas pump outside, one of those ones you had to do with the arm,
Mhm.
and the gas would go up to this,
Through the tube.
yeah, through the tube to this container on top,
Mhm.
however many gallons you wanted.
Mhm.
Uh,
So was there a church in town, or did you guys ever go to church, or?
no, we didn't go to church.
Uh-huh. Was there ever any entertainment like town dances or
No, no.
parades, or was
Well,
it big enough for that?
no, it wasn't big enough. I mean, it was like my parents.
Uh-huh.
When the older kids were in school, it was Lanny and me,
Uh-huh.
and my mom and dad,
Uh-huh.
and then the other family had a man and a wife and a child.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't have had a very big parade.
That was the town, huh?
That was town, yeah. Once in a while, though, they had it was some kind of a social that they'd have it at the old. They'd opened up the old schoolhouse. There was a schoolhouse in that town,
Uh-huh.
but they never had it open.
Uh-huh.
They never taught anything in there. I mean, the schoolhouse was open because we used to go in it all the time and look at the books and read them. And
Uh-huh.
of course, I didn't read, but
Uh-huh.
Happy used to pound around on the piano. There was a piano in there.
Okay, so then some brothers came home and said you had to go to school.
Oh yeah, Ferdinand. He got after Mother because by then I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He told her, he said, "You can't keep her home. She's got to go to school." So she said.
So there wasn't a school in town or near Bixby?
No, no, and there wasn't. The one-room schoolhouses were gone, and
Uh-huh.
that was probably in 1946. No, 1945.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make me 8?
That would make you 8.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first time we went, Mom and Dad took me down, along with Mary and Darlene,
To the boarding school.
to the boarding school.
And so you'd had other siblings that were there already?
Mary and Darlene,
Uh-huh.
they were the only two that went there.
And your mom had gone to one when she grew up?
She went to, but not that one.
Right.
She-
So she was familiar with them, though?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was a government-run Indian boarding school.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So do you remember going there the first time?
I remember crying all night,
Uh-huh.
and the matron mad at me, telling me to shut up,
Uh-huh.
and we had, little single beds.
Mm-hmm.
And Darlene was right next to me, so she let me crawl in bed with her. It was the first time I had been away from home. I mean, I cried aloud. I was crying.
And hadn't they washed your hair in gasoline?
Oh yeah,
back
kerosene.
there?
Yeah,
Kerosene, uh-huh.
yeah. They check you for lice, and
Uh-huh.
we didn't know what lice was. We never had it in our lives.
Uh-huh.
And even if you didn't have it, they would put kerosene on your head
Mm-hmm.
when you first went there. And then it'd burn your ears, and your ears would be all red.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get it out in the morning because all they ever had was soap. They never had shampoo.
Mm-hmm.
So you went around smelling like a kerosene
Mm-hmm.
thing, and your hair was all slick and,
Mm-hmm. And they did that just the one time when you first came.
Or if you were lousy, they did
Mhm.
it more.
Mhm. And so when you were there, you had what kind of chores, or what do you remember of school, or
Oh
whatever?
yeah. I remember my first grade teacher. She was so pretty,
Mhm.
black, coal black hair, and she had long red fingernails.
Uh huh.
Miss Lee was her name, but she left.
Okay, wait. Had you seen a black person yet?
No, that comes later.
That comes later. And what about the ice cream?
That was before too.
Okay, so tell us about the ice cream cone before you went to school.
Oh yeah, well, we were up in Bison with visiting my sister, I guess, and my mother was there. I don't
How
know
old
where
were
Lanny.
you?
You know, I don't know. It was before I went to school, so
7 or so.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it was the first time I had a ice cream cone. We were out, probably doing errands for my sister. I don't know, and she bought a ice cream cone for Rosemary and me. And so we were eating that ice cream. It was the best thing I ever tasted. And I didn't know how to eat it as a cone. So I was sticking my finger down in and getting all the ice cream out. So she told me, my sister told me, she said, "You can eat the whole thing."
Okay, so back at the school.
I get back to school.
So your teacher, long black hair.
Miss Lee, skin white. She was like Snow White.
Mhm.
I mean, really. But she left in the middle of the year, and I got Mrs. I can't remember. No, Miss Calhoun. Mrs. Calhoun.
Mhm.
Tall redhead.
Mhm.
And she just followed me. First, second, third grade. I never had another teacher down there.
Nash.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we
So what do you remember learning in school?
what do
You just basic stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And did you just kind of sit at your desk all day, or was there very hands-on, or do you remember?
No, we just sat at our desks.
Mhm.
Except when we had reading groups, and we'd get in a little circle at, you
Mhm.
know,
And did you have recess or
no.
no recess?
No, it's an Indian boarding school. You don't have recesses.
And were the so the teachers were they nuns?
Some of them were, but some of them were just people that lived. Well, I guess the teachers they had homes along the, you know,
Uh-huh.
the one side of the place where our dorms were not.
Mhm.
I guess that's where the teachers lived. They were just white
Mhm.
people.
Mhm. So what did they do for discipline for kids? Do you remember?
Besides whack your hands.
Did they whack them with a ruler?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he'd whack you.
Mhm.
Yeah, he'd whack you with a ruler. You'd have to stick out your hands. Sometimes they'd whack your knuckles.
Mhm.
I don't know which hurt worse, the inside of your hand.
Mhm.
But I wasn't very bad.
Mhm.
I mean, I made sure I was good.
Mhm.
But the nuns were kind of mean. They used to make us kneel and put our arms up,
Mhm.
you know. And they'd tell us, if Jesus can be on the cross, you can kneel for an hour with your arms.
Wow. So what would you have to do that for?
What would we have to do? Just,
Why would they make you do that?
oh, if somebody didn't know their lesson or wasn't
Mhm.
prepared or something, or some of the boys were goofing off. They were always goofing off.
Mhm.
Ralph, whatever his name was, he was always bad. Getting the whole class in trouble.
So you wouldn't all have to do that though, just the one that was misbehaving?
No, we had to do it. He had to do it a lot,
Mhm.
but we had to do it. I guess so, just so he probably wouldn't be bad.
Oh, wow. Mhm. And what kind of chores did you have then?
Oh yeah, at the dorms. Oh, we had a regular we had to clean up the dorm because the matron never.
Mhm.
So we either had to make sure all the beds were made and proper, and depending on what assignment she gave you,
Mhm.
and dust. And I remember I had to clean the back stairs, wash them, and every morning I'd have to scrub them. And
Mhm.
then one time I had water fountain duty. I had to scrub that, make sure the water fountain was clean. And then the big long sinks. We had big long sinks with a bunch of spigots
Mhm.
where we washed in the morning. Had to make sure those were all scoured.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you remember anything about the food, or
do I remember anything about food?
yeah, or like, whether you got any treats or desserts ever, or
No, we had oatmeal mostly, and we had, I don't know what they called it, but it was toast with warm milk poured over it.
Mhm.
So by the time it got to our tables, it wasn't warm, and so it was like a soggy mess.
milk toast.
Yes, that's what it was milk toast.
Mhm.
And one slice, that's all you had.
Mhm.
That was our breakfast, and that was all you got. One
Mhm.
slice of that toast for breakfast. And oatmeal,
Mhm.
maybe some mush sometimes, like cornmeal
Grits
mush.
or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
hmm But the Sunday noon meal was good.
Mhm.
We had Jello.
On
I
every
remember
noon
having
meal?
Jello.
Or just on every noon meal, or just like on a
No,
weekend, or
just on Sunday.
Sunday noon meal? Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. The other, we had beans like on Wednesday night. I knew it,
Uh-huh. It was a regular routine.
uh, and I knew it because I liked the beans. um, yeah, so we had, but on Sunday we had our noon meal. We had, like mashed potatoes and
Mhm.
some kind of gravy, some kind of meat. I think it was tongue, but I don't know.
Mhm.
It always looked the same, and it was, I imagine I ate it. I don't know.
Because you were hungry.
Yeah, exactly. I used to eat leaves.
Mhm. Orange peels.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then, so that was good. And then our evening meal, we'd have a sack lunch, and our sack lunch was always the same. So they'd bring them in these great, big, huge laundry baskets. They about as big as that, huge.
Mhm.
All the sacks were in there. If you got the one on the bottom, your sandwich was all smashed. So you had a half a peanut butter, half a jelly sandwich,
Uh-huh.
or sometimes it was peanut butter and jelly mix, but usually it was just a half a peanut.
Uh-huh.
And a cookie and an orange.
And you had that every day?
Sunday nights.
Oh, Sunday nights, okay.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
just Sunday nights.
Mhm.
Well, they fed us good on at the noon meal, so they
Right.
gave everybody the evening off. I imagine the people that prepared the
Uh-huh.
food, because the older kids made the sack lunches.
Oh, okay.
Darlene and them in the other building, they went into the dining hall and and made it.
So did you see siblings when you were there?
See siblings.
Uh-huh.
Well, when I first went there, Darlene was in the same dorm as I was for the first 2 years. And then they transferred her to the big girls building.
Mm-hmm.
So I was alone there, but then by then I knew
Uh-huh. Other
the team.
girls.
And Lanny was in the building, the boys building, but I never seen him that often.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where he was.
Mm-hmm.
Poor little guy. He was only 7 years.
Uh-huh. And he
6
didn't have
years
any
old.
brothers there.
He was 6 years old in there, building all alone.
Mm-hmm.
And all the boys were in there from first grade to ninth grade.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so you had a uniform.
Well, we had play pants. They were like you just button up. They were all one
Oh, like
with
a
short
jumpsuit?
sleeves. Yeah, with red bands on the red trimming, and then they buttoned up, you know. So, and our school clothes were like, they were all different colors, but they were like calico
Mhm.
and just dresses, you know, just.
Mhm. And they gave you how many? Is that when they gave you like 2 outfits, or was that when you were older?
No, that was, you just had one, and then you, well, actually, I guess you had two because you'd wear one, you know, say for a week, and then
Mhm.
it would go to the laundry, and then you'd wear your other one
Mhm.
for school.
Would you get yours back, or just one that fit you?
No, you'd get
You
yours.
your own back,
Yeah, you had a number. I
Mhm.
was number 66. Everything I owned had a number 66 on it. I was number 66 all 3 years. I don't know how that happened, but
Mhm.
just the way I came in, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I
So
was-
do you know how many kids there were?
How many little girls? In the building, maybe, gee, I'm guessing, probably 80.
Mhm. Kindergarten or first grade through
Yeah,
9th grade?
first grade through, probably 4th.
Mhm. Wow, that's a lot.
And then the other ones were in the bigger, like I said, the bigger girl building,
Mhm.
which was where Darlene and Mary were.
Mhm. So you were there for 3 years.
I like to go over to the big girls building because I guess our parents left some money for us, you know, so that we could spend there.
Mhm.
A couple of bucks probably.
Mhm.
So every once in a while they would let us go over to that building and buy popcorn or something, you know,
Uh-huh.
a couple of small items. I like to go there because it was way better than the building I was in. I mean, it had a spiral staircase, and these girls would always be standing all, you know, and they were in dresses, you know, and then the one building had,
Picture.
yeah, I know, it had tables where their study area, it was a bunch of tables in there and stuff. Mine, the one I was in, had one great big room with these huge pillars, you know, 2 huge pillars
Mhm.
and a cement floor.
Mhm.
And then behind that was the shower and the bathrooms.
Mhm.
And then the back end that we had to use the back stairs. We were never allowed to use the front because it went over the matron's living quarters. She didn't want a bunch of kids stomping, you know,
Uh-huh.
up the stairs or down the stairs in the morning.
Okay, so you were there for 3 years,
Uh-huh.
and you said at some point you had a littler one. That
Oh
you
yeah,
were
the last year I was
responsible.
there, they assigned me a little girl to take care of. So I was 9. And Catherine, I still remember her name. She was probably 7.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so what did it mean that you had to take care of her?
Well, I had to make sure that she, and she was a bedwetter.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like, before I started taking care of her, she used to always wet to bed and she'd have to put her mattress outside. And so now, here I am.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't my wet bed that I had to help put out there. Yeah, and she had to wash her sheets and hang them out, you know,
Mhm.
for the day, you know, let them dry and bring them back in.
Mhm.
So, yeah, what was I saying?
So just as far as taking care
Oh,
of her.
yeah, I just had to make sure she had her chores done and then was washed up for school, and
Mhm.
I had to comb her hair and make sure it was presentable.
Mhm. So is that the place where you did like?
But you know, she stopped wetting the bed.
Uh-huh.
I told her, I said, if you have to go to the bathroom, I said, go to the bathroom before you go to bed,
Mhm.
because you know we could, you know.
Mhm.
I said, you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I said, you can come and get me and I'll go with you if you're afraid. I said, I told her where my bed was, you know. I said, you can just come and wake me up. And she never did, but she stopped wetting the bed,
Uh-huh.
which was a good thing for me, because I didn't want to be washing sheets that weren't mine.
So, Is that where you started doing memory work for like history and stuff, or?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Memorizing
Like what did you have to memorize?
dates,
Mhm.
dates and explorers.
Mhm. Gettysburg Address and
Yeah, stuff like that.
poems.
Constitution. You know, the
Preamble.
we the people, in order to form a more establish justice and ability to whatever.
Okay, so you were there till you were 11.
All right. Can you
And
edit that?
what grade would that have been?
Third.
You were 11 at third grade?
Fourth.
Fourth grade. And then you went where?
I was like 10, you know.
Uh-huh.
I finished when I was 10.
Okay. So then why did you leave the school? Because the school was still there.
Yeah, I don't know, but when my folks moved from the farm then, because that last year when they took my dad, took us down to school, we had this old friend that used to always come and do things for us, and he had a car.
Mm-hmm.
So he would take my parents places. Well, he took, my dad was sick, so he took him to to the hospital at the same time he took us to school.
Oh.
So-
So was that the beginning of the school year, or was that like?
Yeah, it was the
Christmas?
beginning of the school year.
Uh-huh.
So that middle year, I had to catch the bus. That was when Ferd took me. You know,
When he took you?
yeah, on the railroad, you know.
Oh.
So the first year I went on to that school, I went with this friend of the folks. He
Uh-huh.
took us. The second year, Ferdinand was home from the war, and he drove.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third year was when we took my dad, and he had prostate problems or
Uh-huh.
something. He couldn't pee.
Uh-huh.
So he ended up in the hospital, and
Uh-huh. And so, how far was the school from your parents?
a couple
An hour
hundred
or
miles.
so, or- okay. Uh-huh. And so how often did you see them during the school year?
I didn't.
Not even at Christmas time? Uh-huh.
They could have came down. I mean, parents came. You know, not
Mhm.
many. I mean, one or two kids' parents came
Oh.
during the year, but they never did. Probably because they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we went there in September, and then we went home in May.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get home?
The school bus would take us to this certain point,
Mm-hmm.
and then the kids that would go further would get on another school bus. We got on a train and went to Lemon, and then my folks came from the farm
Mm-hmm.
up to Lemon and picked us up.
Mm-hmm.
Except the last year, Joy and her husband came and picked us up from school.
Mm-hmm. So Ferdinand took you on the train.
No, he didn't take me on train. We were in a borrowed truck.
Uh-huh. And you saw
We
people
were
working on the.
We were driving along the road, and there was these black men working on the railroad.
Mhm.
And they were all dirty, you know, working on the sweat and whatnot. So Ferdinand told me, he said that those were Negroes.
Mm-hmm.
He said those are people whose skin is always black.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, no, they're not. I said, they're just dirty because they've been working on the railroad. He almost died laughing at me. I don't know if he ever remembered that. That was the first time I ever saw a black man.
So that was when he was taking you to school?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
That's funny. So you were 10 or so then?
I was probably 9.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was 9. It was the second year. Yeah, I was 9.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Well, I never seen one since then. I mean, we were farmers. There were no black farmers. Not in that part of the woods.
Uh-huh. So do you remember being treated differently at that point by like the white kids or the?
Not until I went to school.
Uh-huh.
Not until I went to that boarding school.
Uh-huh.
because the farmers, you know, all around, I mean, they had, well, I don't remember any kids. I remember this one neighbor, and I don't know why we went to his house, but we went there late one time, and he had, it was his, I don't know if it was his son or his grandson, but he was a boy, you know, about our age,
Mhm.
Lanny and I.
Mhm.
We sort of played with him, but not really.
Mhm.
But they never told me I was Indian or anything. I mean, you know, they never treated
But
us.
all the kids at the school were Indians.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I never do, you know,
Mhm.
but I found out when they took us downtown to movies, or sometimes they take us downtown and just let us buy stuff. And
Uh-huh.
the ones that had money, the ones that didn't have money, never ever went any place, and there were some that didn't.
Mhm.
Some little ones who didn't have parents
Oh.
that just stayed there at that school.
Okay. And so, at what house